Okay, good morning, everyone. Mary here from the Business Enterprise Center here in Armidale. I would like to warmly welcome you to the webinar this morning called No Business Plans to Fail, but Many Fail to Plan. It's great to see you all, and if you have any question, please type them into the chat box, which brings us to do a bit of housekeeping. At this time, you should be seeing our welcome screen. If you're not seeing it, perhaps it's behind your current screen or in the status bar at the bottom of your screen. Your chat box is located on the very top right of your screen, and if you don't see it, you will see a little red arrow to open it up. On the line with me, I have the privilege to be with Mike. How are you, Mike?
Good morning, Marie. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You are about to discover the importance of having a business plan to start a business. This webinar is proudly sponsored by the Australian Small Business Advisory Program. Our presenter, Mike Creagan, the current CEO of the New England Northwest Business Enterprise Center here in Armidale, has extensive experience in human resources, training and development. He is also a published author with HarperCollins and successfully established and managed an RTO training company for 17 years. So Mike is going to bring you a fresh and up-to-date approach and present the information in an easy and to understand manner. Okay, over to you, Mike.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Marie, and good morning to the people on our webinar this morning. I hope you get some value from it. In fact, I'm sure you'll get some value from it. Okay, the title, as Marie introduced, is simply Business Plans or Business Planning and the importance of that. Now, there's a little snapshot of me, and again, I just acknowledge that this webinar series is a part of the Innovative Digital Business Solution Program, which has been supported by the Australian Small Business Advisory Services Program, and that's a federal Australian government initiative. So thank you to them for making this series of webinars possible. Okay, to get into the aim of this webinar, the first is to basically give you an overview of what a business plan is. Now, there are a lot of people who talk about business plans and business planning, and what we hope to do is to give you a structure to be able to create a business plan that's applicable to your side of business. I'm also going to give you the references and the economic model, the business model, to give you the reasons why you should do planning for your business. There's another old saying that says you should always take time out of your business on your business. Now, business plans are not only when starting a business, and we have evidence that many businesses start with no plan whatsoever, but it's also very much for existing businesses. We encourage people that might have had a couple of successful years trading to always come back probably once a year or even more often, probably monthly, quarterly, and just review their business plan and re-establish where they're going. It's like a compass bearing. Now, we don't have the time this morning to go through the micro steps of actually constructing one, but look, the whole benefit of this webinar is just to show you what you have to do and how you have to do it, and we'll give you more detail on how to get help. One of the big things is that a business plan is not one size fits all. You have to do it as it applies to you and your business and your own business skills. Okay, so what is a business plan? An analogy can be like a roadmap where you're starting at a particular point and where you'd like to be after, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a year, two. And if you don't have that plan in place, you could end up anywhere. It's a template. Now, there are some very complicated, detailed ones, and there's some very modest, simple ones. It comes back to you and your business and how much business knowledge you have and the complexity of the business. I can also use the analogy of a recipe, that if you follow the procedures and put in 1 cup of flour and 2 eggs, you come out with a cake. And the other thing is it's a checklist. It's a sort of a series of processes that you go through, and if you go through those processes, the chances are that you won't miss some important strategic part of the plan that you need to cover. And also it can sometimes mean that you have to change. You have to start planning and start putting the effort and the energy into this business planning process. And probably one of the most important end results for a business that's planning and doing a business plan is to decide whether the business model is viable. It's much easier to find that out in the planning process by doing the numbers, asking questions, doing the research, looking for competition, than to spend money, go into business and have some major roadblock come up 2, 3 months, 6 months down the track that you just were not aware of. And sadly, that's what can stop businesses in its track. So to give you a very formal, structured definition, what is a business plan and why do I need one? A business plan provides specific organized information about your company. It provides direction, and that direction keeps you on track, and it's usually a requirement when you seek finance. So if you're going to speak to a financial institution about funding the business model, they will always ask you for a business plan, and if you haven't done one, that's a serious setback. So a business plan actually is like your business resume, and it also helps you allocate resources and handle unforeseen problems. And in doing so, it's much easier to make those decisions at the planning stage rather than have it come up, as I said, 3, 6, 9 months into your business. So it's always work in progress, ticking off what you've done, where you're going, and how you're going to plan. And there's a lot of information about goals and goal setting, but sadly a lot of people don't have business goals. So a business plan is one of the most valuable management activities that you can do for yourself. And I used the very famous quotation of Abraham Lincoln: if he had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. So I think that's indicative of how important it is to do the planning process. It's quite important, and then the execution. There's another saying in the building trade that says measure twice, cut once. So, but it does, if you get the plan right, you know, put more effort into the planning, and then the execution is made a lot more simple. So some statistics. Now these are from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the last census. Tells us that there's over 2 million small businesses in Australia, 680,000 in New South Wales. I think there's over 20,000 in our footprint. But the saddest part is that only 40% of small businesses are profitable. That means that they are paying their taxes, their super, and putting money aside and moving forward. Only 30% break even, and sadly 30% are continually losing money. Now these people sometimes have to take second jobs, or they're not making all their statutory commitments on time. And 20% of small businesses fail within the first year. So at the BEC here, we often meet people where their business is in crisis. And one of the questions we ask, well, do you have a business plan, or did you do one? And sadly, our anecdotal evidence is that there's still a lot of people starting businesses without that plan. And on the right-hand side, it gives a little more detail about the longer-term probability. So after 10 years, there's only a 9% chance of surviving. So one of the best decisions that you can do is plan for your business and then make a proper value judgment whether you should move ahead. So a business plan covers many things, and what usually is the problem is what you don't know. So a business plan is a checklist to go through and research and identify, and if you say I don't know much about that particular area, well, that's the very area you have to research and investigate now. And you know, bigger businesses, when they are moving into a new business venture or into a new territory or area, they usually have a lot of experts either on staff that they can draw onto to help them. But once you start your own small business, you're the manager and you must know everything. Again, that's just another reason which we'll make at the end, is that we strongly suggest that you make contact with one of our advisors at the BEC, and we can hold your hand and take you through the process of creating a business plan. For the very small investment in time, effort and energy, we have the benefit of hindsight, we have the benefit of dealing with many businesses, and we can share that knowledge with you to make sure that your business has a much better probability of moving forward. And there's a quotation here that says, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? So again, the business plan is a checklist, a roadmap on who you are, where you're going, and what your plan is going to be. Now, I'm going to use the analogy of building a house. A large number of people have had some sort of involvement with someone building a house. Now, a couple of things is that most people just don't plan a house themselves. They usually engage the expertise of an architect and civil engineer. And the other thing is, you're not allowed to start building a house unless that plan has been approved by a local body, a council. But you have to decide things up front in terms of the location of the house, the size, whether it's going to be split level or 2 stories, and that will impact upon the foundations, what sort of walls, external cladding, the plumbing, the electricity and the windows. So what would happen if you put together a house plan but simply forgot to put in doors or forgot to put in light switches? The end result could be a huge problem. So what we are suggesting in the business planning process is to make contact with the BEC and let us help you create a business plan that gives you the best picture and the best chance of success. Now, how much do you already know about the business that you're proposing to go into? For some people, they are actually buying themselves a job by moving out into it to become a small business person. Some people have probably and may have been working with a larger organization and have seen an opportunity where they can do something better. So I asked this question, is this your first business or have you run businesses before? Also, if you have been involved in small businesses before, it's a lot easier to apply those same core basic principles to a new business model. Now, if this is an area that you don't have any expertise about, or is it somewhere where you're just going straight into a new territory? Now, there is a small problem, well, not a small, it's quite a significant fact that the chances of survival are greater if you go into a franchise type situation. But most people do actually start a small business by themselves. And the many things in that business, you may be very experienced in one aspect of it, but not have experience in other areas of it. Let me give you an example. Let's say a great chef, fantastic restaurant, and says, look, I can do this better myself and go out and set up a new restaurant. Well, that's fine, but who's going to do the management, the finance, the ordering? How do they know the break-even numbers, buying, portion control, wastage? So just to be fantastic in one area of the business, in actual fact, that's great, but you have to have support around you to make sure that the other areas are being taken care of. And again, I just use another building analogy. A person might be a fantastic builder, but just know nothing about marketing. And for most businesses, if you don't know anything about marketing, that means no business. So there's another concept which is referred to as benchmarking. Now, at the BEC, we have access to some very sophisticated benchmarking data. Now, for example, let's say a plumber, they have industry standards about how much their income should be, how much they spend on raw materials, how much they might spend on electricity, car, other things. So when a person is setting up a new business, it's always good to look at these national averages, these national benchmarking standards. So if when you get your business plan to a particular point, we can sit down with you and tap into this benchmarking information and give you an opinion as to whether or not you're on track, or whether there's some substantial areas where you're either way above or way less, and that gives you a deal of confidence to know that you're going to move forward and the business has an incredibly good probability of success. So how much effort is involved? Well, it really depends upon the sort of business that you're going into. Whether it's a very small, modest, say, lawn mowing business in a rural town, or whether you're setting up a more complex business that maybe involves buying in product and having a sort of a retail outlet and whatever, and employing up to 10 staff, well, that's going to take more time and effort to plan all the functionality of that. Or you might be going into an import business. And again, we are surprised at the number of people who, again, say they'd like to set up some of these businesses but have no full understanding of the complexities of buying from overseas and bringing products into Australia with all the laws, regulations, quarantine, customs, whatever. And more increasingly, home-based e-commerce businesses. Now, but again, there are certain models and certain processes, and if you follow those, you have a better chance of success than just simply going out alone. I've research, and research. I can't stress this enough. Now, the whole idea of this business plan is not just typing up a whole lot of words on a piece of paper. Unless you can fully understand and document the answers to the topics and the questions, you have to go out and research that information yourself. And if you don't, and if you just use guesstimates or take a punt at it, that's where you can come unstuck, because you say, oh wow, I wasn't aware of that. So what are some of the things that you can do? First of all, trial market research by, if you think you do have a new service, product or whatever, go and talk to some of the potential people who might be customers. Give it to them, show it to them, and say, look, if this was presented to you at a set price, would you be interested? And then listen to them. They might say, no, that's too dear, or blah, I already get them somewhere else for half the price. Now, that's the sort of knowledge that you should be finding out in the planning stage, not once you've set up a business and bought in stock and going out starting to try selling and to get that same sort of response. Now, the idea of giving samples, testing, get testimonials from people, get their feedback, listen to what they say in terms of price, product, packaging, any other comments they might have to give to you. And one of the best other ideas is to just go looking to buy the product yourself. So if you're thinking of setting up a business in whatever, just do the best research you can, all the buying directories, web, anything else. Talk to people to say, where could I get this similar product? And that will give you some very good feedback and knowledge about your own particular business plan. Now, focus groups. There's a lot of marketing organizations that actually pay people to come in and sit down and listen to a new business concept, or to talk about a company that might be changing a product or introducing a new item. They talk to the people about it and say, well, what are your thoughts? And people just give their frank feedback. So that's the sort of thing that you have to do. Investigate all aspects of the competition, their service, their price, their delivery, where they have locations, their method of taking cash and payment, whether they do consignment, whether they have retail, wholesale. This is all the knowledge that you have to research. Now, another great thing to do is talk to similar existing businesses. Now, a little bit of a caution, if you try to do that in the immediate town or suburb where you're setting up the same sort of business, some of these people might perceive you as a threat and not be terribly forthcoming. So you might get a bit dejected and say, oh, well, this is a waste of time. But if you go to the other side of town or to another similar town and go, let's say a bakery, just to pick something out of the sky, you go to another town and go into the bakery and have a chat to the person, you'd be surprised how many business owners, business managers are just happy to give you frank feedback about the town, the industry, the economy, what's happening, what's developing, and where things are going. And this is the sort of knowledge that really gives you a fix as to whether or not your business plan is coming together. Now, if you pick a very standard template of a business plan, these are some of the core areas that you need to comment on. There is usually an executive summary, that's the summary of the whole document. Sometimes it might only be a page or two, but that encapsulates the key points of the other main sections. So being able to articulate exactly what the business concept is, to demonstrate that you have thoroughly researched the product, the market, the industry, but then it's more detailed than that. How are you specifically going to go to market? And towards the end of this webinar, I'll give a bit more information about the digital strategy. And no matter what you're doing, it's so important to incorporate business digital strategy into your business model. A big accounting firm, Deloitte, tell us that only 16% of Australian businesses are using the sorts of digital tools that their customers want, and the evidence shows that if a business is not using those tools, they are probably losing those customers to other businesses. Now, there's usually a very functional, pragmatic operational plan which specifies how the business is going to come together in a very detailed format. Then there's the most important financial plan, and I'll explain that in a little more detail when we get to it. And then, you know, businesses, if you're only one person and plan to stay at one person, that's fine, but then you sometimes need to have holidays and time off or a replacement. But the minute you start employing people, you have to have this HR plan in place. And that's where a lot of my early career was, in human resource management. And it's so important. Now, depending upon what sort of business you are going into, there may be some other topics and sections that you choose to put in and address. So in the executive summary, the key things that you do is describe the business, why you are going to start the business, what's the rationale for you, what specific goals do you want to have, you know, for your business after 6 months, a year, 3 years, whatever. It might just simply be to stay in business. What's the target market? Now, this is increasingly becoming important, that you can't just say, oh, I have a product and it's for everyone. The greater you go in and look at a niche market, the better it is. There is usually a financial summary that just gives the key dot points of the business, what money you need, what the turnover is going to be, what the profit's going to be, etc. A couple of little points about your marketing summary, and then this unique selling proposition. What's going to make your business different from the one next door, so that people come to you instead of other competition? So the business concept, it's now giving a little bit more information about the business, even little simple things like the business name, and also what qualifications you have to have. There are many businesses that won't let you start unless a person has key qualifications in certain areas. You have to think about the legal structure, whether you're going in as a sole trader or as a company. They are probably the two most common ones. There's a couple of others which I won't go into here. And for many businesses, you cannot start until you have obtained the appropriate license and or permits and or council approval, whatever. So again, sometimes these processes take time, and you know, it's better to put them into place sooner rather than later. But it's even probably more important to go back a step to validate the whole business model before you start taking specific starting steps. So market research, you know, what methods are you using? And what are the results? What's the initial feedback that your market testing is giving you? Now, depending upon your business, it can have a big impact upon the whole state of the industry. Industries come up, industries come down. Let me give you an example. Like the rural industry at the moment is very stressed because of recent drought prices, and of course the overall mining industry is doing it tough at the moment. So whether you're in retail, you know, they're in taking a lot of competition from internet and e-commerce marketing, and then the overall economy. You know, whether the most people in the economy, whether they are confident. In fact, there is a thing called the business confidence indicator, and whether people are likely to be spending, people are likely to be investing. So that's important. How are other local businesses doing? So if you do your research and other local businesses in a similar area are not tracking very well, so what are you going to do different that's going to either make your business different? And this very important market segmentation. Let's say, pick another random subject like hairdressing. You know, are you going to target the young female teenagers or the middle-aged mums, or are you going to target maybe older people, what they call the blue rinse set? Or it might be male, you know, it might be the older gentlemen who just want a standard haircut, or you might be looking for the young trendy people who are looking for unusual hairstyles. So the more you go into that, the better your targeting, marketing is going to be. Look at your customers and what they want. Now, there's another thing that's called a SWOT analysis, which stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, you look at your business and identify those four things. And I've just had a question come through. I'll just sort of mention it. Anna's asking whether a license is required for a home-based business. Now, Anna, the simple answer there is it depends upon what sort of business. I'm sorry to be broad, but what you have to do is maybe contact your local council and give you that specific advice. Now, the reason why I'm being a little bit vague is, let's say you were setting up a web-based e-commerce home-based business, there'd be no licensing involved at all. But if you were setting up a home-based childcare thing, well, yes, there's very strict rules, regulations. If you were setting up maybe a building, welding thing in the backyard, there are some other OH&S things and some safety things with oxyacetylene equipment. And if you're doing maybe beauty treatments or hairdressing from home, again, there's some requirements. So we at the BEC don't go into that level of complexity and knowledge about being able to answer those very specific detailed questions. But what we do is say, go back to your local council. There is usually a person who is in the economic development area or just at the front counter, and they can put you on to the appropriate person. So tell them about what sort of business you're planning to start up at home. There's also, I've come across some other areas too where people had some concerns about traffic and parking and thing, noise, late at night activity, whatever. So just go back to your local council. I hope that answers your question. Okay, moving ahead, we talk about competition and the competitive advantage. So it's very important to look and see what you're competing against and what other people might buy to even substitute whatever you're attempting to sell or do. And then, of course, it comes back to this competitive advantage. What makes you just that little bit different? And I'm sure you can all think of a number of businesses that just focus maybe on one particular aspect of their business, and that then becomes their marketing. It surrounds their marketing, their process, their whole mantra. Okay, the marketing plan. Again, we go in and identify exactly the product and or products, plural, and or services, plural. And sometimes for each one of those products and service, you might have to have a totally different thought process, marketing process, cost process to take each one of those products to market. And that comes back to, you might sort of say, well, we can't take everything to market. I think we should start with one. And then you might have to go through a decision-making process as to which is the best and most profitable one and easiest to go into, set into a market. But this all comes back to the planning process. Now, price. If you live by price, you die by price. But price is important because we talk about a thing called the break-even point, that if you can't sell enough units to cover your base costs and then to give you an adequate profit to cover your unit cost, you don't move forward. So, and there's another area called price testing, basically having the same product and selling it at a different price into different markets. You have to decide the geographic area of your business. That might be a town, a location, or you might be going up into a bigger geographic area. But all those things have to be decided whether or not you can service customers in those areas or whether it's just not applicable or cost effective to do so. What's going to be your distribution method? Are you a wholesaler, a retailer, whether you're going to go through the internet? You have to decide all these things up front, whether you're going to do home deliveries, whether you do bulk deliveries, whether people can come and pick up. Again, all this has to be decided at the planning stage. And then what promotion and advertising are you going to do? Now, we have a checklist here that's probably got about 30 odd points on it, things from walking up and down the main street with a sandwich board to putting a sticker on the back of a taxi to putting flyers, in a library. They're all ideas. Now, many of them may not be appropriate for you, but some of them might be. And in terms of a marketing plan and a longer marketing activity, we suggest that you trial and test a lot of these ones. Now, it's not what you think is going to work, it's what your customers are looking for or what your customers react to. And that's where we come into this monitoring phase where you're continually testing the advertising function to see what's working and what's not working. So the operational plan goes into some very specific things about the business location, whether it's home-based or a physical business location, or whether you only go to people's businesses to do whatever you're doing. Some of the legal and administrative requirements, whether there's a production aspect to your business, or some people are using what they call a fulfillment process, where you have a third party who has the stock in a warehouse and you just send them an email to send a product to Joe Blow, and they wrap it, pack it, take it to the courier, post office, and you just pay them a fee for that, and the client pays you. So you don't get physically involved in a warehousing distribution type function. So it's also important to break up the organizational tasks of who does what. And are there other strategic relationships you need to have in your business to make it a success? So these are all just checklists of things to go through. HR, you know, how many numbers of people you might have, when will you need them, what's the availability, what level of training do these people need, do you have to bring them in for a substantial time to induct them and show them your processes and get them to do things the way that you want, so that if you have a mad rush next week, it might take 2 months to get someone, or you can't find anyone at all. Do you have experience in recruitment? If you don't, I would strongly again suggest you do. The BEC ran a webinar only early last year which had a HR checklist. Now you can get access to that past webinar. All that you simply do is go to our website and put in /past-webinars, and you can get access to that past webinar, or you can also get access to it as a podcast. So if you're in this area, I would suggest you take advantage of that service. In fact, all our past webinars are currently in the process of being put up on the website, so you can go back and look at quite a number of them 24/7 when it suits you. In terms of HR, what are the legal records that you have to keep? And the other big thing is occupational health and safety, workplace and safety. You make a major mistake, it can cost your business big time, not let alone the stress and the trauma to an injury of the person. So the production process, how's that going to go? How many units do you think you're going to sell? And people say, well, how do I know? Well, that's where you have to do a thing called modeling, where you say, what would happen if I sold 20 units a month? How would that affect my business? And then you have to try and work out whether it's feasible to sell 20 units at a particular price point. And what would happen if I went up to 30 units a month? Or what would happen if I dropped down to 10 units a month? So all of these things have to be done and modeled and to give you an idea of how profitable or how sustainable your business might be during a quiet period. What specific costs do you have? And that means going through a very exhaustive list of things like even electricity and insurance and rates and other membership type things that you may not have thought of. So on the production side of things, it's also, do you do it yourself or do you outsource it? Now, sadly, there's some people who just want to try and do everything themselves, where it's much cheaper to buy in a particular units that are, you know, already pretty well advanced, and you just put them together with something else. Lead times, that if you do have place a new order, how long is it going to be between when you place the order and you have that stock ready to sell on? And how much stock do you have to hold in your own shop, warehouse, factory, whatever? So all these things have to be thought through. Now, this is where you have to become very, very detailed, and we do have some very explicit templates that we can help you with here. First of all, you have to do your own personal budget. Yes, your personal budget, and how that's going to impact upon you going through a period of maybe no income or limited income and spending increased time on your business. Now, you have to do what is referred to as a personal net worth calculation, or your own balance sheet, to find out what your own assets and liabilities are, and what sort of money you might be able to put into the business or support the business until you can start getting a wage or profit back out of the business. If you don't do that, it can be very, very personally stressful on you, your partner and your family. Now, the sales mix. This is where we're talking about a number of probable products and services. How many of each one do you think you're going to sell over what period? What's what they call the cost of sell, or the buy-in unit price, or the production cost, and then what's going to be the gross profit, and how much of that gross profit is going to go to what they call fixed costs, and how much is going to be then profit at various price points. Now, the establishment costs. For some businesses, it's very modest to set up a business. Let's say a lawn mowing business. You might say, you know, to buy a trailer, a lawnmower, a ride-on, a rake, whatever. But if you start saying, well, I need a massive big car, trailer, couple of $1,000 ride-on, then a couple of mowers, whippersnippers, hedges, whatever, the cost can start blowing out. So is the business model going to support that initial investment? Of course, the same principle can be applied to any sort of thing. Now, the need to borrow. Any financial institution is going to, first of all, ask for, you know, a business plan. Then they often come back and look at your personal budget, because quite often they will not loan against a new business. They will only loan to a human being or a family or a person who has personal assets that maybe could be mortgaged against the business loan. So again, all that has to be discussed and talked through with a number of financial institutions. This crucial thing called cash flow. As to at what points is your business receiving income and what are going to be the low points. Now, some businesses have seasonal fluctuations like summer, winter. Others have maybe over Christmas, New Year, when a lot of people in their area are holidaying, or it could be the absolute reverse, where this is a holiday town and people make most of their business in the holiday, school holidays, whatever. And this thing called profit and loss, you know, that's what the ultimate business is all about. How much profit are you making, or what are you potentially losing? Now, the big thing is to reduce problems before they present. That's probably the one single advantage of a business plan. Now, again, get individual and independent advice. And again, I can't say enough how we at the BEC here are available to help you sit down and get things going. We have very heavily subsidized arrangements where we can sit down with you at no charge whatsoever and help you get started, and then can come back and help you review where your plan's at. And for people who need more detailed help, we will be running a number of workshops in the not too distant future, and we'll also be starting what we are calling an incubator program. That means that you can come in for a modest fee with a group of people, not in a competing business, and we sit down with you and step you through a much bigger program to give you that hand-holding, confidence coaching, mentoring process to just make sure that you not only get the business plan correct, but you help you get involved yourself. Because we just don't sit down and do a business plan and hand it back to you. That defeats the whole purpose. It's got to be a two-way activity. So spend the time to get organized. Yes, there's some that you have to do yourself, but please get professional help. We can refer you to a couple of specific pieces of research that says that businesses who get professional help are 50% more successful. I'll repeat that. Businesses that get professional help are usually 50% more successful. So if you're going off to start a business, wouldn't it be a lot more reassuring to say that, look, I have actually sat down with a business professional, and therefore I have a 50% better probability that my business is going to survive the first year, third year, fifth year, whatever. So again, I just can't stress that enough, that we have the resources, the knowledge, the help here to help you. And if you want to go to our website and go /incubator, all you have to do is put in your name and email address, and we'll be coming back to you where we'll be having free information sessions throughout our footprint. Now we go right up to Tenterfield, out to Moree, down to Werris Creek, and depending upon the numbers, we'll be having information sessions in all of those areas and all of the larger towns within. So please take advantage of that and just find out what we're doing and how we can help you. A business advisor can also just have a fresh look at your business, your thinking. Sometimes you get very locked into your what you think might be, and a business advisor who has seen a number of businesses might just be able to give you some fresh thinking, and they'll also challenge your base assumptions, where if you say, oh, I'm going to sell 100 of those every month, you know, how can you demonstrate that? What research have you done? So by challenging some of the core decisions, assumptions, points around your business plan can be very, very, very rewarding. We also know how to look for problems. And as I said, we have the experience of dealing with many businesses, so we can help you keep focused on you and your business plan. So the whole objective of this webinar was that if you fail to plan without knowing it, you are probably planning to fail. So we can have very stereotyped paper-based Word templates. So what it is, it's a Word document with a number of headings, and you just go in and attempt to type in the answers to that, but that for many people is a major challenge. First of all, if you have not worked in the business or if you haven't done business plans before, too many people get stuck at this point and therefore do not do the planning process. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a new concept that's been developed by one of our senior advisors, Janette Wray in Tamworth. She's developed this wonderful mind map process, and I've just given a screenshot of just one page. But what she does, and what the other advisors can and will do, is sit you down and ask you to think about certain aspects of, and this one just happens to be market research. And by asking the questions and listening to the answers, those answers are then documented into the plan. So it's a very insightful, new, right brain, if you can use that term, compared to left brain, right brain, creative way of doing a business plan. Okay, there's another question that's just come in, and what do you do about legal advice and contracts? Now, again, we at the Business Enterprise Centre are very cautious about pretending to be what we are not. And we are not legal advice, and we do not give specific accounting advice. We are duty of care. We are just not trained and therefore qualified to give you competent answers. So if you do have anything to do with legal documents, legal advice, we suggest you take the step of working out what your issues are and making an appointment with a legally qualified person, because whatever advice and answer they give you, it is covered by what they call professional indemnity. It means that they should know what the advice is that they are giving you. So if we at the BEC, who are not legally qualified people, say something to you, we have to be confident that we have the capacity and the ability to make that comment. So if you ask us a specific legal advice, it would be very inappropriate and just not right for us to pretend to give you an answer. So look, in legal advice and contracts, always get a legal person to review them, and I can assure you that there's a number of businesses that have gone broke simply because they did not get proper legal advice, or they did not understand the law of contracts, and something comes up, and then they got challenged, and yeah, it can be. So the problem for a lot of people is it's the weak link in the chain. It's what you don't know about, or the weak aspect of your knowledge, experience, that can be the very point that becomes the problem for your business. And this is a definition by the Australian government, but it says the most common cause of failure nominated by external administrators is company management issues, especially poor strategic management, poor financial control, and little or no planning. So investing in time to create a business plan is one of the most valuable activities that you can undertake. It gives you the direction and structure for your business to become a success. Now, lastly, I made reference to this earlier on, but in today's modern economy, unless you are bringing in the digital aspect to your business, there is a serious problem. Now, we have developed a digital checklist. Now, we can sit down with you and go through and work out what do businesses do in a very low digital space, what are some of the average businesses doing in a digital space, and what are the highly engaged digital businesses doing. Now then you can decide where you want to be in that scale and what you have to do. And it's not about what you want to do. Seriously, it's about what customers are demanding. There's a thing called the digital gap, and that means the difference between what businesses are providing compared to what people want. And if people want to shop online or want to be able to go onto a website and look for your products or look for testimonials or get a product manual, and you don't have that facility, they'll probably go to someone else who does. And the other astounding statistic is that most, or 85% of Australians, use a mobile phone to research before they make a purchase or actually make a purchase. So there's a pretty astounding statistic in itself, that 50% of Australian businesses do not even have a website. That's a problem in itself. But then of those businesses who do have a website, up to 80% of those businesses are not what they call indexing properly, meaning getting in the search results for Google. So, and most businesses do not use social media. So we have a program here where we can help you look at your website and look at your social media program and move forward. So the other overall thing that I made a reference to at the beginning of this webinar, for some, after doing a business plan, the decision may be not to start at all or to make some significant changes. Now, if that happens, that's good. Now, at this point, are there any other questions that people have about anything that I've made? We've got about 9-10 minutes before we finish up. So I'll just ask you at this point, if there's anyone got a question, just type it in and we can go to it, and I can answer that to the best of my abilities. But in the meantime, we'll just move on. So for the people who want to get access to our past webinars, there were 2 or 3 up there at the moment, and there are more coming. But if you simply go to that our BEC website /past-webinars/, you'll be asked to give your username and email just so that we keep track of who's coming through the process, and you'll be given immediate access to those webinars, and you can then you can pardon me, then you can review them. Now, I've just had a person here. Do you do consultations over the phone? I'll just have a small sip of water, excuse me. The simple answer to that, Michelle, is that because we are heavily subsidised by a couple of government programs, if you're in our footprint, which, as I said, goes right up to Tenterfield, Moree, down to Corindi, Werris Creek, yes, we could do a phone consultation with you. Now, if you're outside that area, we could do a phone consultation, but we would have to charge you a modest hourly rate, because otherwise that pardon me again, tickle in the throat, that has implications about our tender and our contractual arrangements. So look, if you have any doubts, give us a call and we can discuss how we can help you. I've got another question coming through here. Does it cover the coast? Now, sadly, our territory finishes at Ebor, and there are some other organisations that work further down on the coastal area. So look, if you're prepared to come to Armidale, you know, for some of these workshops, we can help you. Now, another thing that we've got just about ready to release is that we have access to a couple of e-learning programs. Now, these programs, we don't, there is no restriction on around Australia. And some of these e-learning courses are going to be about things like Twitter, AdWords, Facebook. Yeah, there's a number of them there. So for a very modest fee, we can give you access to it. Now, I've had a comment here that says, oh, there's no BEC for coastal areas. If you go to do a web search for Small Biz Connect, that's SMALLBIZCONNECT, that will take you to a Sydney website, the Officer of the Small Business Commissioner, and if you put in your postcode, it will tell you who the the organisation right around New South Wales that provides these services. So it's not just business enterprise centres who do this. There are a number of other what we call job network people, like Nortec, ETC, just as a few, who also provide these services. So you can go and speak to those people locally and help you. So moving forward, we've only just got a couple of other things to do. So again, and that's where we have to put this caveat in, that it's only people within our geographic territory, and as I said, there's contractual reasons for that. We can offer a free small business mentoring advisor, and we can offer some other heavily discounted products, and we also can offer access to other workshops. So if you'd like to make contact with us, you can either email us at mybusiness@bec.com.au or phone the 1300 BEC ARM, or the other landline is just simply 6771 2556. Now, this is what I made reference to earlier, where we have these incubator programs, starter business workshops, and we can do, if you have an existing business, a business health check. So what it's actually doing, again, we sit down with you and look at your business and take you through a number of questions and scenarios, and we can give you an idea of what areas you need to make some substantial change, or what areas is everything okay. And the biggest thing that we are doing, and again I acknowledge the innovative business digital solutions and the ASBAS federal program, is that we are running a whole lot of webinars, podcasts, membership sites, e-learning courses, and other digital products to help people increase their digital engagement, because this is probably one of the most single steps that you can do to significantly lift your current business. And if you'd like to, now there's no restriction on this, we're happy to give this to people outside our area on the coast or whatever. If you'd like a copy of this complimentary starter business booklet, we can send it to you. It's just a checklist of a whole range of things that you need to think about. So thank you, and probably the only other last thing that I will mention is that we're in a very advanced stage of being able to help people with websites. Now we have a web checklist that we can sit down and have a look with you about what needs to be incorporated into a website, and then we can help you with some very simple procedures and processes to get a low or medium cost but a very successful site up and running. So look, that takes us right to 10:30. I've timed that quite well. So if anyone has any other questions, please pop them in straight away. If not, we'll close this webinar, and thank you. And if anyone would like to privately email me, my email is ceo@bec.com.au with any comments, suggestions, feedback. Other than that, we do strongly suggest, if you are in our geographic territory, to make contact with us, set up an appointment, or come in and get involved in our workshops. And I'm sure we can be of significant value to you. So with that, I'll say good morning, and catch you next webinar. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mike. It was a pleasure to have you this morning with us. With all that, I would like to end the webinar. I wish you all a beautiful Tuesday, and you can follow us on our Twitter and Facebook account for more special offers.